Hey guys, have you been having trouble keeping up with the Manson cases? Well, if you have, things are about to get a lot easier. It looks like 3 of them are over. Let's take a look. Remember Ashley Smithline? She let her case get dismissed out of federal court, so it's gone, at least for now. And Bianco and Manson have announced to the court that they have reached a settlement. Let's look at it. They had a private mediation on January 17th of this year, and as a result of that, they reached an agreement in principle to resolve the above referenced litigation, finalizing the papers, anticipated dismissal in 45 days or less. So they did make a statement to the press, both sides, and it was almost identical. That suggests to me that they are exercising caution to make sure they get this thing landed. Probably going to be a high level of confidentiality. Settlement agreement is a private document. You're not entitled to see it, so you can paint your own picture. If you're pro Manson and you're happy, then you think, well, she gave up. There's no concessions by Manson. He doesn't have to concede anything, probably. If you're pro Bianco and you're happy, he gave up. The settlement indicates he paid her money. Why would he do that if he were innocent? If you're pro Manson and you're sad, he didn't clear his name and he paid dollars for false allegations that weren't retracted. If you're pro Bianco and you're sad, it was just too traumatic and harassing for her. Justice was denied. No one could be expected to go through what she was going through. And where's the conclusion that Manson did this? It's a sad day. But these are just people, Manson and Bianco, and they're not really avatars for an entire movement. And maybe it's not fair to them or yourself to expect them to fight to the death to satisfy anyone else if they see a way to get out of this in a way that's satisfactory for them. Plus, if there's any insurance involved, it gets more complicated and more complex. But a settlement is almost always a compromise, and neither side gets all they wanted, or maybe not even all they thought they deserved, certainly. But there's a big value to both in not continuing litigation. That can be worth a lot. The kind of case this is, it's not easy to prove it. It's not easy to disprove it. It involves a lot of personal information. So there is an inherent value probably to both parties just to get rid of this on top of whatever the settlement terms were. So for me, this doesn't increase or decrease or change my opinion about whether Manson did or did not do all or some of the things that Bianco alleged. The world has a lot of gray in it, and I've seen a lot of settlements on a lot of fact patterns. A lot of cases settle for more than they're worth if you had any sense of equity in it, but some settle for a lot less. So was there a fat check here or nuisance value? We'd just be guessing. Likely it's confidential and it won't be filed with the court. They've reached terms, and that has to be converted into a really long contract. Yeah, you sit down and you go, well, I'll do this, and you do this, and you do this. But then they turn it into a gigantic, hard to understand, overly long contract. And maybe when that's done, there'll be a lengthier kind of joint statement sort of thing of what they both agree they can say, expressing hope this brings peace on earth or whatever. But maybe they'll just leave it to what they've already said, which is the case was resolved so people can move on with their lives. Now, it doesn't mean that you necessarily have heard the last of this. There are limits on what can be held as confidential. For example, California has a law that says this: notwithstanding any other law, provision in a contract or settlement agreement entered into after 2019 that waives a party's right to testify in a judicial proceeding concerning alleged criminal conduct or alleged sexual harassment on the part of the other party to the contract or settlement agreement, when the party has been required or requested to attend the proceeding pursuant to court order, subpoena, or written request, is void and unenforceable. So you're not going to be able to keep either side from providing testimony in some other case. So that could come up, I suppose. Anyway, the dismissal is not yet filed, but it's almost in the books. And then at least for now, Manson's journey in federal court will be over. But the news doesn't end there. It appears from the court docket at the Court of Appeals in California that Ashley Walters has failed to prosecute her appeal, and the appeal has been dismissed. So is it a clerical error? That seems unlikely. Did she just give up? That also seems unlikely. Her lawyers certainly late last year were indicating she was not giving up. Was there a secret settlement around the same time as this? Perhaps, and maybe probably. You wouldn't even see that at the Court of Appeals necessarily. She could just abandon the appeal and they have some agreement that they've reached. Maybe. I don't know. But it appears at this point that her case will be over. And her case was a shoe-in for reinstatement because it was considered still pending at the time the statute of limitations changed. So I think she would have gotten her case back. But it's not going to be pending anymore after this, and abandoning the appeal of dismissal for prejudice probably means her case is over. So maybe she settled it with Manson, maybe she gave up. And I can't conclude for sure now, but that's what it looks like. One of those things happened. So this leaves Jane Doe as the lone warrior, and then Manson's case against Wood Gore. So if Doe settles, and these other people appear to either have settled or given up, then we're really going to find out if Manson's case against Wood Gore was part of King's overall strategy to manage the litigation and allegations against Manson, or whether he wants to soldier on to clear his name as his supporters hope. Again, if he were to settle the Wood Gore, if these other cases settle, I wouldn't hold it against him. People have lives to lead, and they don't all want to stay in litigation forever. So maybe he would soldier on and try and prove that things are false, and maybe he would work something out there too, as is happening in these other cases. We don't know. But at any rate, significant development for Manson in these cases. Certainly his lawyers have done the job they wanted to do, which is get several of these cases out of the courtroom, settled and behind their client. That's the objective. It's not just to put your client through a jury trial where you don't know what's going to happen. Their job is to resolve the cases, get them over with, and they've been doing that. And for the plaintiff side, let's assume, since these are settlement agreements, they're not compulsory, that they're satisfied too, and the level of controversy has been condensed. Thanks, bye.